Hello, this is Joshua, Gongs Unlimited, with the assembly of our new and improved spirit guide stand. And this is a wooden stand that comes in a large and a small size. Large for 20 to 22 inch gongs, and the small 16 to 18 inch gongs. And this is a stand that we've had in inventory for a long time, but it's now newly redesigned. And and just a side note, from a designer, this stand is now fully and better designed for gong users. The stand before was great, but had a lot of default of just making a wood stand. This stand has been renovated and re-looked through for all structural improvements and improvements for general gong user, gong player use. So it's a really well designed stand. All the parts that come in the box are before me on the table. The hardware would be 4 bolts, 2 little bitty screws, the hex wrench, and then 2 wood dowels, wood pegs. And then the structure part is the top horizontal beam, 2 vertical posts, one of which has a pre-installed gong holder peg, the base plate, and then 2 feet. And on that note, the 2 feet have a large countersunk side and then a smaller, just single hole side. The larger countersink side is the bottom. This will go down. The base plate has a notch cut out to receive one of the feet. That, with the notch, is the downside. On the vertical posts, you have one side with a gong holder. Choose which side you'd like to place that. And there is a front and a back to these front posts. The back has this small hole for an optional set screw. That is the back side. The other side is just a clean, flat surface of wood. So both have that little drilled hole, pre-drilled hole for a set screw that is actually optional, but that will mark the back side. And then lastly, the top horizontal has these grooved pegs that stick out, and that is the gong holder. So that is the front side. And there also is, so there's 2 holes, and then on one side of this small surface, there is a hole and a small pre-installed metal set screw that's driven by this hex wrench. But that is the bottom of this horizontal. That is all the parts. The assembly is pretty easy. I will start with base plate. I'm going to set the verticals here. Each side needs two of these bolts that have the round head and the hex drive using the hex wrench. So I'll need 2 to start with, and one of the feet. And that, so this is the base plate with the bottom side facing up. And I can place this in its notch and line the holes up and just press this into its notch. I'll come back to that one. And I will hold this in place and then flip it over with both of those holes hanging over a table. This is really helpful to use a table surface for installing the stand, because we're going to drive the bolts from the bottom up. So working from a side of a table works really well. I'm going to grab one of the bolts and then slide that through both the bottom foots with the countersunk bottom here on the bottom, and then up through one of the holes in that notch that meets its bottom. And then taking whichever of the vertical upright posts, I'm going to take the one that has the gong hook on it and establish that will be facing me on the right side. So the back side of this post is facing you. And then I will kneel down and then just bring that bolt down and catch. You'll notice that there are 2 holes where 2 bolts will be coming up, and then 2 pre-inserted metal threads inside the bottom of this upright. You're going to catch, since I'm on the back hole, the back side of the foot, and then align all the parts, and by hand I am just starting that bolt. So I'm going through 3 parts: the foot, the base plate, and the upright, and then just by hand I'm starting that bolt. And once I can feel it started, I'm going to hold all 3 parts, which is pretty much just the bottom foot pressed up against the base plate, and grab the other bolt and start that in the other hole. Adjust that to alignment and get both started. And you can put these bolts in by hand and just start them in both all the way up until your hand can't quite turn it anymore, but you've got both of them as far up as you can through all 3 parts, holding the base and the foot upward. Take the hex wrench and one of those bolts, turn, until it's moderately holding tight, and then the other one, so they are loosely tight from below. And then make sure that this is oriented exactly square to the base plate. This edge should be close to flush. Hold that in place and then tighten both of those bolts. Just hand tight. And you want to make sure the head of the bolt is sunk up under the bottom of this base foot. Come in for the last tight, make sure this feels all aligned, and then just hand tighten that, both of those bolts, until it feels tight. And then maybe run your finger under the bottom, make sure the head of that bolt is sucked up under that countersunk hole. And that is one side, and we'll repeat to the other. Flip this around. And at this stage, before we put the next upright in, you want to install through the notch that fits the shape of the upright bar through into the notch. So again, this is the front side. I've already established one upright, and there is this little hole, and that is the back side. So I am on the back side as you are on the front side. And so this is the front, and I will slide this through this notch. And then front, but there's also a top and a bottom and a top. The bottom has a little hole that has a pre-installed metal set screw. That is the bottom. So this is the bottom of that upright. This is the front of that upright. And then slide this through all the way till it hits this peg and just leave it there. And then we're going to come back to the other side of the base plate. And again, this is the front. The back side of the upright post has this small little countersunk screw hole. That is the back facing me, so that'll face this way on this side. 2 more bolts and the other foot with that larger circle countersunk to fit the head of the bolt on the bottom. Set this aside, we'll use it again. Now we have both uprights, and this horizontal will slide from one notch to the other and all the way over. And before we get all the way in on this side that has the gong mount, so it doesn't get in the way, leave this out here. You're going to slide one of these wood pegs through this hole, and you want that to be spaced at the width that this upright is. So pinch it to be at the same width of this upright post. And I'm going to pull it out outside of this notch, and then there is a metal lock insert that has the same hex drive. And I'm going to push this or turn that in until it grabs, until that notch doesn't move out, so it's locked in. And then slide this through both, and that peg locks this horizontal in. One more peg through this hole, space it so that it is the same width as the upright. And at this point, there should be enough pressure on both of these upright posts pushing outward for that peg to feel moderately tight. And then we just want to lock it in with the hex wrench, turning that set screw up against that peg, and just tighten that enough until that wood peg doesn't slide in and out. It has enough pressure this way to hold against these two pegs for a very fantastic and beautiful stand. If you want extra security, if you live in an earthquake zone, or if there's any rock to this top horizontal, you have the option on the back side to install these tiny little set wood screws. And those go in with a Phillips screwdriver through these preset holes and then into this horizontal base. And that locks in the stand. It's an option. If you want extra security, I will not set those in. If you're worried about the uprights coming in this way, then you'd want to set those extra optional set screws. But everything should be set pressure this way to the out for the stand to operate as is. And that is the new and improved and pretty fantastic designed spirit guide stand. This is the large, which fits a 20 to 22 inch gong. And this is a 22 inch CHAU, which just sets over those dowels into the notch in the dowel. And there is the Unlimited spirit guide stand. Thank you.